The impossible soldiers. High Commander Krix Vorn had lived through 300 cycles of military service, commanded fleets that conquered entire star systems, and faced down some of the most fearsome warriors in the known galaxy. Yet nothing in his extensive career had prepared him for the footage playing before his eyes. "Play it again," he ordered, his elongated fingers drumming against the obsidian command table. His inner membranes twitched with growing unease as he watched the scene unfold for the 101st time. The neural-linked AI complied instantly, projecting the battlefield footage across the command center's panoramic screens. The scene showed what should have been impossible: human soldiers, they called themselves Delta Force, moving through the radioactive ruins of Chernobyl with casual efficiency. The black-clad figures navigated through zones that Zelian environmental sensors declared absolutely lethal, setting up what they termed a forward operating base, in conditions that should have reduced any living being to their component atoms. "Sub-Commander Nixis," Krix called out, his scaled neck extending as he leaned forward. "Explain to me again why our troops can't do this." Nixis, standing rigidly at attention, cleared her throat tubes. "Sir, the radiation levels in that zone would liquefy our internal organs within minutes, even with our most advanced shielding. These humans, they just walk right through it. Their equipment must provide superior radiation protection," Krix suggested, though he already knew the answer would disappoint him. "That's what's truly disturbing, sir," Nixis replied, manipulating the holographic controls to zoom in on the human soldiers. "Their protective gear is primitive, nothing more than layers of synthetic materials and basic lead shielding. By our standards, they might as well be wearing ritual dancing costumes." The room fell silent as they watched these impossible soldiers work. Their movements were precise, professional, showing no signs of concern about their lethal environment. These weren't the actions of primitive warriors, this was the work of highly trained specialists who had mastered their craft. "Show me their vital signs during this operation," Krix demanded, his professional detachment slipping. Nixis brought up a separate overlay, displaying biological data that defied explanation. "Heart rates elevated but stable, sir. No signs of cellular degradation. They're not just surviving, they're thriving." Krix felt his upper spines bristle. When the human resistance had first emerged, he had dismissed them as primitive creatures barely worth the attention of the mighty Zelian Empire. Now, watching these black-clad figures moving through hell itself like it was nothing more than a pleasant stroll, he felt the first real stirrings of fear. The implications were staggering. If humans could operate effectively in radiation zones that even Zelian technology couldn't protect against, what other impossible feats were they capable of? "Get me everything we have on their other special operations units," he ordered, rising from his command chair. "Every scrap of footage, every sensor reading, every battle report. Something tells me we've greatly underestimated what these humans are capable of." As his subordinates scrambled to comply, Krix kept his eyes fixed on the frozen image of a human soldier casually checking a primitive wrist-mounted device in an environment that should have rendered them to atoms. For the first time in his illustrious military career, he wondered if the Zelian Empire had finally met its match. "And Nixis," he added, not turning around, "send word to the High Council. Tell them we may need to reconsider our invasion strategy." The next few hours brought more disturbing revelations. Reports flooded in from across Earth's various combat theaters, each more impossible than the last. British SAS operators conducting successful raids in the crushing pressures of the deep ocean. Australian SAS troops moving through the burning outback in full gear during the height of summer. French Foreign Legion soldiers operating in the suffocating heat of the Sahara without environmental protection. But it was the footage from what humans called the Night Stalkers that truly shook Krix's confidence in Zelian's superiority. The elite helicopter unit operated in conditions that Zelian pilots considered suicidal: zero visibility, extreme weather, terrain that defied their most advanced navigation systems. Yet these humans did it routinely, without the benefit of neural interfaces or AI assistance. "Sir," Nixis interrupted his thoughts, her voice carrying an unusual tremor. We've detected new human special operations activity in the Arctic Circle. Temperature readings are, well, you should see this yourself. Crix turned his attention to the fresh data stream, his chromatic scales shifting to a darker shade of dread as he processed the information. The briefing chamber's temperature plummeted as the environmental simulators activated, recreating the conditions from what would soon be known as the Arctic Massacre. The room fell silent except for the hum of overworked thermal regulators. If humans could not only survive but thrive in conditions that killed Zelian troops in minutes, what were the strategic implications for the wider war? Sir, Zara Vex, their chief battle analyst, spoke up. Before they left, Stone's team left a message carved into the base's quantum steel walls. Our linguistics experts just finished the translation. Crix braced himself. What did it say? Thanks for the cool reception. We'll bring hot cocoa next time. The High Commander of the Zelian Defense Force, veteran of 1,000 battles across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy, felt something he hadn't experienced since his first combat drop, pure, unadulterated fear. These humans didn't just fight in impossible conditions, they joked about it. As the day wore on, more reports arrived, each adding to the growing picture of humanity's impossible capabilities. Russian Spetsnaz operating in conditions that would freeze Zelian blood solid. Israeli Sayeret Matkal conducting operations in environments so hot they would melt Zelian combat suits. Canadian JTF-2 moving through snowstorms that would blind Zelian sensors. Sir, Nixus approached again, her normally confident demeanor shaken. The High Council has responded to our report. Crix didn't need to read the message to know its contents. The Zelian Empire, for the first time in its history, would have to seriously reconsider its approach to conquest. These humans, with their primitive technology and impossible resilience, had changed everything. Prepare a full strategic analysis, he ordered. I want to know everything about these special operations forces. Their training, their capabilities, their limitations, if they have any. We need to understand what we're dealing with. As his staff rushed to comply, Crix couldn't shake the image of those Delta Force operators moving through the radioactive ruins, or the Navy SEALs treating the lethal cold like a minor inconvenience. The Zelian Empire had conquered countless species across the galaxy, but none quite like this. Humanity's elite warriors didn't just operate in impossible conditions, they mastered them, turned them into advantages, and seemed to take a perverse pleasure in demonstrating their capabilities to their would-be conquerors. One more thing, Crix added, his voice carrying the weight of revelation. Find out what this hot cocoa is. I want to know what gives them this power. Little did he know, understanding human special forces would prove to be the least of his concerns. The impossible missions were just beginning, and humanity's elite warriors were about to demonstrate why they were the most feared soldiers in any environment, against any opponent, no matter the odds. The war for Earth was about to enter a new phase, and the Zelian Empire was about to learn why humanity's special operations forces were considered the best of the best, not because of their technology, but because of something far more powerful, their indomitable spirit and ability to thrive where others couldn't even survive. Desert Phantoms. The holographic display in the Zelian Command Center shifted from Arctic white to desert gold, and even through the environmental filters, Commander Crix felt his scales prickle at the simulated heat. The Yemen incident, as it would come to be known in classified Zelian records, represented another impossible chapter in their increasingly desperate war against humanity. Temperature reading 55 degrees Celsius, battle analyst Zara Vex announced, her voice tight with professional concern. Our forward base was equipped with our most advanced cooling systems. The humans had nothing comparable. The footage showed the vast expanse of Earth's Rub al-Khali Desert, where the Zelian Empire had established what they believed to be an impregnable position. Their base, a testament to advanced alien engineering, sprawled across the dunes like a metallic oasis, protected by thermal shields and quantum-locked defensive barriers. Show me the initial contact, Crix ordered, his inner eyelids narrowing against the harsh glare of the desert sun in the projection. The scene unfolded with brutal clarity. A small human team, led by Lieutenant Mira Rodriguez of the U.S. Marine Corps Force Reconnaissance, approached the base on foot, not in vehicles, not with cooling suits, but on foot, carrying what seemed to be ridiculously heavy packs in the scorching heat. Their approach lasted 6 hours, Zara noted, checking her data streams. No breaks, no shade. They carried approximately 40 kilograms of equipment each. Our medical experts still can't explain how their organs didn't cook inside their bodies. Crix watched as Rodriguez's team, designated Ghost Actual, moved with practiced efficiency through the desert terrain. Their movements suggested intimate familiarity with the environment, using the dunes and heat mirages to their advantage in ways that made Zelian motion tracking systems nearly useless. "Play the combat footage," he ordered, dreading what he was about to witness again. The holographic display shifted to show the assault itself. Ghost Actual had waited until the hottest part of the day, when even the Zelian base's cooling systems were straining at maximum capacity. The humans struck with devastating precision, using the sun's position and the heat distortion to approach within meters of the base's perimeter without detection. "Sir," Sub-Commander Nixis interrupted, her voice carrying a note of disbelief, "we've finished analyzing their equipment. They used nothing more sophisticated than what they call desert camouflage uniforms and basic hydration systems. Their weapons were standard ballistic firearms, technology that's practically antiquated by our standards." The footage continued, showing Lieutenant Rodriguez personally leading an assault on the base's main power distribution node. The Marines moved like desert spirits, appearing and disappearing in the heat haze, striking at critical points with uncanny accuracy. "Focus on their combat effectiveness metrics," Crix demanded. Zara brought up a new overlay, displaying the human operators' biological data during the assault. Despite the extreme conditions, they maintained combat efficiency ratings above 85%. Their body temperature regulation, while elevated, never reached critical levels. They were operating well within their operational parameters. The room fell silent as they watched Rodriguez's team systematically dismantle the base's defenses. The Zelian garrison, despite their advanced environmental protection systems, found themselves at a severe disadvantage. The humans had turned the desert itself into a weapon, using the extreme heat to force the base's cooling systems into overdrive until they failed catastrophically. "Show me the incident with the maintenance tunnels," Crix ordered, his scales darkening with remembered humiliation. The display shifted to show an underground section of the base. When the cooling systems failed, the maintenance tunnels had become death traps, their temperature soaring to levels that would cook most organic matter. The Zelian troops had abandoned these areas as unusable. Yet the footage showed Rodriguez's team moving through these superheated corridors with determined precision, using the tunnels to bypass the base's remaining defenses. They had even cached supplies in these unusable spaces, turning the most hostile sections of the base into their own private infiltration network. "Play the command audio," Crix requested. Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice came through, calm and controlled despite the hellish conditions, Ghost Actual to all elements. "Remember your heat management training. These tunnels are our friends, the enemy can't use them, which makes them our highway straight to the objective. Stay frosty. Stay frosty," Crix repeated, the human idiom making his scales itch. In temperatures that would boil their blood, they make jokes about staying cool. The footage continued, showing the final phase of the operation. Ghost Actual had emerged from the maintenance tunnels directly into the base's command center, catching the Zelian leadership completely off guard. The humans had actually used the extreme heat of the tunnels as a stealth mechanism, correctly gambling that the Zelians would never expect an attack through environments they considered utterly lethal. "What was it Rodriguez said to the base commander?" Crix asked, though he had memorized the words. Zara pulled up the transcript. "Welcome to the desert, sir. We thought you might need some tips on beating the heat." The display showed the aftermath of the assault. The Zelian base, designed to withstand everything from orbital bombardment to nuclear strikes, had fallen to a small team of humans who had turned its most formidable environmental defenses into vulnerabilities. Sir, Nixus interjected, we've intercepted communications from other human special operations units. They're using this incident as a training example. They're teaching their operators how to replicate these tactics. Crix felt his chromatic scales shift to an even darker shade. You mean there are more humans learning to fight like this? Not just learning, sir. Improving upon the techniques. We've identified at least 12 different special operations units conducting desert warfare training in even more extreme conditions. The humans appear to view our environmental limitations as exploitable weaknesses. The implications were staggering. The Zelian Empire had conquered worlds across the galaxy by leveraging their superior technology and environmental adaptation capabilities. But these humans, they didn't need advanced technology. They had turned their own biological resilience and tactical adaptability into weapons more formidable than any quantum shield or plasma cannon. Update our combat protocols, Crix ordered, his voice heavy with resignation. All desert operations are to be suspended indefinitely. And get me everything you can on human desert warfare training. I want to know how they create soldiers capable of these impossible feats. As his staff rushed to comply, Crix couldn't shake the image of Rodriguez's team moving through those superheated tunnels, turning the very environment that should have killed them into their path to victory. The Zelian Empire had never encountered warriors like this, soldiers who didn't just overcome impossible conditions but embraced them, mastered them, and turned them into advantages. Sir, Zara spoke up, her voice hesitant. There's more. We've detected increased human special operations activity in several other extreme environments. Mountain warfare units operating at altitudes our troops can't reach. Jungle warfare specialists moving through terrain our sensors can't penetrate. Marine reconnaissance teams operating in ocean depths that should crush them. Crix felt a cold sensation in his primary heart, despite the environmental simulator's desert heat. The Yemen incident wasn't an isolated impossibility, it was just one example of humanity's elite warriors demonstrating their mastery over conditions that the mighty Zelian Empire considered uninhabitable. One final thing, sir, Nixus added. Before Ghost Actual departed, they left something in the base commander's quarters. Our xenobiologists are still trying to understand its significance. What was it? A primitive refreshment container. Inside was a substance labeled Gatorade with a note that read, "Stay hydrated." Desert Warfare 101. As the holographic display continued to replay the impossible assault, Crix realized that the Zelian Empire's greatest mistake hadn't been underestimating human technology, it had been underestimating human adaptability. These special operations forces didn't need advanced environmental protection systems or quantum-enhanced combat suits. They had something far more powerful, the ability to turn any environment, no matter how hostile, into their own personal hunting ground. The war for Earth was taking a turn none of his strategic simulations had predicted, and Crix couldn't shake the feeling that the Yemen incident was just the beginning. Humanity's elite warriors were about to teach the Zelian Empire a lesson about combat in impossible conditions, and the tuition would be paid in Zelian blood and pride. Ghosts in the Green Hell. The command center's environmental simulators struggled to recreate the oppressive humidity of Earth's Amazon rainforest. High Commander Crix studied the latest tactical disaster with growing unease, his scales itching from the artificial moisture in the air. Explain to me, he said slowly, how we lost an entire forward base to what you're telling me was essentially a handful of humans with painted faces. Battle analyst Zara Vex manipulated the holographic controls, bringing up footage from what remained of their Amazon forward operating base. Brazilian Special Operations Forces, sir. They're jungle warfare school graduates. We never saw them coming. The display showed the dense canopy of the Amazon rainforest, a virtual ocean of green that had proven impenetrable to even the most sophisticated Zelian scanning technology. Their base had been established as a testing ground for new bioadaptive combat systems, systems that now lay in ruins. Play the initial contact footage, Crix ordered. That's just it, sir, Nixus interjected. There was no initial contact footage. The first we knew of their presence was when our systems began failing. The humans had been in position for days, possibly weeks, observing our operations. They became part of the jungle itself. The footage showed only fragments of the assault, captured by failing security systems. Human operators moved like living shadows through the undergrowth, their movements indistinguishable from the natural flow of the jungle. Their faces and bodies were covered in what seemed to be primitive camouflage, mud, leaves, and paint, yet they proved invisible to even quantum-level motion detection. "Show me their approach vectors," Crix demanded. Multiple overlay patterns appeared on the display, showing impossible routes through terrain that Zelian military doctrine had classified as completely impassable. The Brazilian operators had used the three-dimensional nature of the jungle itself, moving not just around obstacles but through and over them, utilizing the canopy as easily as the forest floor. "Sir," Zara continued, "their commanding officer, Captain Paulo Silva, had his team construct what they call hide sites throughout our operational area. They lived in these positions, completely undetected, studying our patterns. The botanical analysis is disturbing." The display shifted to show crude but effective structures that blended perfectly with the jungle. The humans had literally grown parts of their hidden positions, weaving living plants into natural blinds and observation posts that were functionally invisible to both electronic and visual detection. "They didn't just survive in the jungle," Nixis added, her voice carrying a note of reluctant admiration. "They turned it into a weapon. Every aspect of the environment we considered a hindrance, the humidity, the dense vegetation, the indigenous life forms, they transformed into tactical advantages." The footage continued, showing the systematic dismantling of the Zelian base's defenses. The Brazilian operators had introduced local plant species that interfered with sensor operations, used indigenous insects to map patrol patterns, and even employed the natural electromagnetic interference from storm systems to mask their communications. "Play Captain Silva's transmission," Crix ordered, his scales darkening at the memory. The audio crackled through the command center, to Zelian Command. "You built your base in our jungle. Did you think we wouldn't notice? The rainforest is our home, our classroom, and now, your tomb. We are the ghosts of the green hell, and you never stood a chance." The display showed the final phases of the assault. The Brazilian operators had created what they called microclimate warfare, using their intimate understanding of the jungle's ecosystem to systematically destroy the Zelian base's environmental controls. They introduced specific plant species that attracted local wildlife, which in turn disrupted security perimeters. They utilized natural water flows to compromise structural foundations. They even weaponized the jungle's natural decay processes to accelerate the deterioration of advanced Zelian materials. "Sir," Zara interrupted, bringing up new data streams, "we've detected similar patterns of jungle warfare adaptation in multiple human special operations units. The British SAS in Borneo. US Green Berets in Congo. French Foreign Legion in New Guinea. They're all demonstrating these capabilities." Crix felt his primary heart rate accelerate. "You're telling me this wasn't an isolated tactical development? That humans across their planet have mastered this type of warfare?" "Not just mastered, sir," Nixis replied. "They've been perfecting these techniques for generations. Their jungle warfare schools don't just teach survival, they teach dominance. Every rainforest, every jungle on their planet has its own core of human warriors specifically adapted to exploit its unique characteristics." The implications were staggering. The Zelian Empire had always relied on technological superiority to overcome environmental challenges. But these humans, they had taken the opposite approach. They had learned to become one with environments that Zelian military doctrine considered hostile and uncontrollable. "Show me the recovery team's findings," Crix ordered. The display shifted to show the aftermath of the Brazilian operation. The Zelian base, once a testament to advanced alien engineering, had been completely reclaimed by the jungle. But it was the messages left behind that truly demonstrated the human psychological warfare capabilities. Throughout the ruins, the Brazilian operators had left small markers, primitive carved symbols that their xenoanthropologists were still trying to decode. One recurring image showed a jaguar consuming what appeared to be Zelian technology, accompanied by words in the human Portuguese language, a selva sempre vence, the jungle always wins. Sir, Zara added, her voice hesitant, we've intercepted communications suggesting that other human special operations units are requesting training exchanges with the Brazilian Jungle Warfare School. They're actively sharing and improving these techniques. Crix felt his scales shift to a shade of deep concern. First the radiation zones, then the Arctic wasteland, the burning desert, and now this, humans turning the very jungle itself into an ally in their resistance against Zelian occupation. Update our strategic protocols, he ordered. All jungle operations are to be suspended immediately. And get me everything you can on these jungle warfare schools. I want to understand how they transform ordinary humans into these ghosts. As his staff rushed to comply, Crix studied the final pieces of footage from the Amazon base. The Brazilian operators had left one last message, this one carved into a living tree that had somehow grown through the base's quantum-reinforced command center, Bem-vindo à selva, welcome to the jungle. One more thing, Nixus added, almost as an afterthought. Before they disappeared back into the jungle, Captain Silva's team left something in what remained of the base commander's quarters. It appears to be some kind of traditional beverage they call cachaca, with a note that reads, for when you realize the jungle isn't your enemy, she's ours. The environmental simulators cycled again, but Crix barely noticed the change in humidity. His mind was racing with the implications of what they'd discovered. The Zelian Empire had conquered countless worlds by imposing their technology upon alien environments. But here on Earth, they'd encountered warriors who had taken the opposite approach, humans who had learned to become one with their environment, turning nature itself into a weapon more powerful than any technology. The war for Earth had entered yet another impossible phase, and Crix couldn't shake the feeling that the jungle warfare revelation was just another chapter in humanity's book of impossible military achievements. These special operations forces weren't just soldiers, they were masters of adaptation, capable of turning any environment, no matter how hostile, into their own perfect battlefield. As he watched the final footage of the Brazilian operators melting back into their jungle home, Crix realized that the Zelian Empire's greatest challenge wasn't defeating human technology or military might. It was competing with humanity's incredible ability to adapt, to thrive, and to master any environment they encountered. The jungle had taught them a costly lesson, and Crix feared it wouldn't be the last.